Mexican drug cartel boss Joaquin Elchapo Guzman has been convicted of drug trafficking. The guilty verdict could put the 61-year-old behind bars for the rest of his life in a high-security US prison. Federal prosecutors say Elchapo's cartel amassed billions of dollars, importing cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine and marijuana into the US. North America correspondent James Glenday reports from Washington.
We not just heard about the tons and tons of drugs that flowed from Mexico into the United States and elsewhere around the globe, but we also heard about Elchapo, aka, well, he's known as Elchapo, but his real name is Joaquin Guzman. We heard a little bit about his personal life as well. Associates who turned on him said he slept with girls as young as 13, calling them vitamins because he needed them for his health. It talks about, we heard about how he had ordered hits on people. He had a room in his mansion called a murder room, which was tiled and had a drain so hitmen could clean the blood up a bit easier. We also heard about how Elchapo was involved in torture as well. So he really was a brute, and it is quite extraordinary the fact that he has now finally, after escaping from jail twice, including once through a tunnel that went into a Mexican high security prison, that he has now been convicted, although he is going to appeal. The security around this trial was almost its own story in itself. The jurors were anonymous, they were protected around the clock, they were transported at certain times because prosecutors said that they were worried members of the Sinaloa cartel could either try to intimidate the jurors or have them killed if they didn't comply. Also, we heard a little bit more about the way in which the Sinaloa cartel operated, the way it was able to get drugs into the country. Before this trial, there had been reports that the Sinaloa cartel had things like planes and submarines to get drugs in, but extraordinary detail was gone into, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the sentence is. Elchapo is 61 years old. Most people expect that he will now spend the rest of his life in prison, if authorities can keep him there, that is. From the outset, it has to be said, most people speculated that Elchapo would be found guilty because there were, he had done all sorts of things like used spyware to record his girlfriends and partners, and those sort of texts and those communications had been obtained by the FBI. He had also bragged, most famously, I suppose, with actor Sean Penn, that he had all these resources at his disposal and about how powerful he was. And there were also, as you mentioned, so many witnesses who had previously worked with him and were trying to get time off their sentence or were otherwise complying with authorities, who gave extraordinarily detailed descriptions of the various way he operated. And I think what will be interesting to see is whether or not this is the first of many. Certainly he's the most high-profile drug kingpin to be convicted in the United States, but there are plenty others in Mexico as well. And it's also worth noting that that war on drugs between the Mexican cartels and also the Mexican and US governments has estimated to have claimed around 100,000 lives in the past decade alone.